Today we're going into head-to-head battle in Caverna, cave versus cave.
It's going to be dark in there.
It's very dark.
Dark in the cave.
It's okay. They already have lights. We're good. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode with To Die For Games. I'm Tracy, the Gaming Maven.
And I'm Stephane, the games teacher.
Are you looking to see what we think of this game? Looking to see how to score it? Well, click on a timestamp below.
Give us a subscribe so you know when we post new stuff, and comment, let us know how we're doing.
And with that, we're going to get to our caves and build them up.
Go spelunking. In Caverna, cave versus cave, the goal is to be the dwarf leader with the highest victory point total from the rooms you build in your cave, and also the gold you collect.
So the components for Caverna, cave versus cave, are quite cool. First we have our action board, then we have our two cave boards, one for each player, and they do fold up so they fit quite nicely in the square box. Then we have our action tiles. Our action tiles are the ones that we start with and then future rounds as we go through the game. Then we have our room tiles. We have starting room tiles and then basic room tiles that will go on each player board. We have an additional cavern tile. We have 12 goods, so 6 goods for each player, and then we have some cardboard replacements. We have 7 cave walls. We have 4 action tiles and the start player tile. Here we have the setup for Caverna cave versus cave. So the first thing that's going to happen is the action tiles are going to be shuffled with their respective numbers. So all the 3s will be shuffled, placed face down. There's only one 4 tile, so it will be placed there, the 2s, and then the ones with the dwarf on the back are going to be also placed, these ones are going to be placed face up. The 6 building tiles that start have the rubble on the back, and they're going to be placed face up. All the ones with the bigger stones and the little pickaxe are going to be shuffled and placed on each player board. Everyone starts with a starting building, and this spot does not get a building a tile on it. Every player is going to take the 6 goods tokens, and they're going to place them on the number 1 spot on their track. And then the start player will take the starting marker, and the rest of the wall, the additional cavern tile, and the action tiles will be placed within reach of all players. Now we're ready to begin. So the first thing to happen at the beginning of each round of the game is a new action. So there'll be 8 rounds, so this first tile will get turned over. So now there'll be 5 available actions for this round. A new one will be turned over every round, with the final one being turned over in the 8th round. Each player will get to take a number of actions based on how many dwarfs are showing on the bottom of the most recently turned over tile. So in the first 3 rounds, we're going to have each player's going to have 2 actions. In the next 4 rounds, each player will have 3 actions. In the final round, each player will have 4 actions to take, which means they can take 2 of these actions. What's basically going to happen is when a player takes an action, they're going to push it to their side. So they're usually going to put it off to their side. So we'll just do that for now. For one player, and then the other player, it would be pulled up. So if this player wanted to take this action, they would basically get 1 action tile, which would allow them to trigger an action on their board. So you can take these. These are mostly handy for people to remember how many actions, especially as they accumulate more actions, knowing that you can basically play that on that building to have taken that action. In addition to that, a player will increase their resources accordingly. So in this case, they would increase those 2 resources. Then the second player will get a chance to go. They will get to basically bring this up, and they will be able to receive 1 food. And then each food per dwarf means you can build one of the building tiles. So how this works is you have to pay the resources on the top of the tile. There is also a requirement for number of walls. So some of them have 2 walls, and they actually need to be in that space. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be on the left and top of this tile when you play it this way, but you just have to have it when you play it. So you show, I have a wall there and I have a wall there in an L shape, because some of them require 3 walls, some have optional walls. So you'll see that some need at least 1 wall but can have a second wall, but they cannot have more than what is there. So you need to have exactly what is needed for that. So in this case, if the player wanted to play this one out, they would have to pay 2 food, and then they would have to have at least 1 wall, and they'd have to pay a stone. So they could pay a stone, they could collect this, and they can play it in an empty cavern tile that is orthogonally adjacent to an already existing building. So if this was cleared, you wouldn't be able to play it there. You'd have to play it here. Now, once that's played, the player will have to clear more rubble in their cavern before they can play out more of these tiles. This tile will be worth 4 points at the end of the game. As well, you can take an action on your turn to be able to basically trigger this building and be able to take what is on this building. So trading in, for example, I believe this is wheat. It's got a funky old gray name on it, basically for food. So that is kind of handy to get more food, because food is very necessary for building more buildings. Then each player will again take a second action, do whatever that says. Then once they've taken the number of actions based on what round they're in, the round will end. So some of the additional actions players can take, in addition to building buildings, so you pay a certain amount of resources per dwarf to basically build one of the available buildings out, you can also excavate buildings. So excavating buildings basically means you'll get to excavate a cavern tile, and when you turn that over, some of the spots may have available food. There are 2 spots, I believe, on the boards that allow you to increase your food by 1. In addition to that, basically you have excavated tile, and it actually comes to the general supply. So it doesn't necessarily mean you get to build it. It now becomes part of the general supply that either player can build if they have the resources and the required placement spots. So you don't know what's placed out where, because it is random. But what comes up, you may want to look at it and say, oh, it's got good points, or it's got the actions that I need, so I'm going to want to build that right away. Now you do have an available spot to do so. If your opponent has no available spots because they're all full, then it would be easier for you to do so. Anything that says that basically a plus actions, you're going to basically get that amount of that resource. As I mentioned, this orange number here is going to be a number of actions. So sometimes you can have more than 1 action if you take multiples. So what you're going to do is you're going to take 1 action, but if you take 2 actions, you'll take 2 of these, because what you'll do is you will basically place them on there when you basically take that action of that building, and then the second one will get placed on a different building so that you can take it. So that if you get, say, 3 or more, they're helpful for reminding you which actions you've taken. There are some trade actions, which basically allow you to trade 1 resource for another. These ones here allow you to build walls. Building walls is very handy because, like I said, some of the buildings require a certain position of walls. So you would need to build basically a wall there to be able to say, build this building here. So, or you could build it over here, which would give you the L shape you need for that building. And then you'd be able to build that 1. Otherwise, you would not actually be able to put that into your cavern until you have the walls needed. Additionally, you may want to actually get rid of walls because certain tiles may not want that wall there. For example, this one, if you want to play it here, you would not be able to do so because there are 2 walls. So you'd want to raise that wall, get rid of it in order to be able to build that. So how you do that is you would basically get rid of the wall, but you'll also get benefits for it. So it's kind of like with mining, you'll basically get resources. It's not just going to be a get rid of the wall. On the final 8th turn, you're basically going to turn this over here, and it's going to allow each player to take 4 actions. So only 1 turn, but you'll be able to take 4 actions and basically be able to take any of the available actions showing. In addition to orange buildings, there are some blue buildings. So as we can see, players have built out more buildings than they have some of the blue buildings. Blue buildings are what I would call passive buildings. So the idea is when you take whatever the action is, it will give you something in return. So let's say anytime a player receives the green resource here, they will also get an additional food. So they're very helpful for building onto actions you're already taking. In addition to the buildings, you have an anytime action here that basically allows you to trade in one of the following resources. So the ancient grain, I always forget what that's called though, and then the gold. So one of these 3 resources allows you basically to get more food, because food is very handy in this game for building more buildings. So you do definitely want to make sure that you're getting a lot of food. If you notice here, the only resource that can go past 10 is gold. So if you do have more than 10 gold, you basically turn it over and start back at the bottom of the track. All the other resources are limited to 9 resources. The game will end when each player has taken 4 actions on the final 8th round. Once that happens, players will then score up all the points for the buildings that they have built on the top right hand corner. They will also get 1 point for each gold that they have collected so far. So if you have 10 plus 1, it would be 11. In this case, it would be 1. Most points at the end of the game wins. And now we're ready to give our review of Caverna, Cave versus Cave. So what do you think, Stephane?
I really enjoyed this game. I like its bigger brother, Caverna, and but you know, it requires a lot of setup time. This one you can play a lot faster. Setup is very minimal. The rule set is familiar if you've already played Caverna. And the iconography also very familiar.
I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting. I was already expecting to enjoy it. I love Uwe, I love Caverna, I love pretty much everything in those kind of mechanics, but I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked this, and I was happy that I actually picked it up at Origins, because I wasn't originally thinking to, but I thought, I'm in line, I might as well.
A lot of people were buying 2 copies. We didn't feel a need to buy 2 copies, but
no, we'll usually play it together, so we're good. Yeah. So art and theme. What do you think about the art and theme in this one?
Again, very reminiscent of the original game Caverna. It's effective for what it does. It's, you know, kind of that cute fantasy theme, playing dwarves, families of dwarves in this case. And yeah, the iconography works well on the tiles. All in all, I really enjoy it.
Nice. The theme is very similar to Caverna. It's a much different mechanic. I find the mechanics are smoother, a little bit more, I like to use the word elegant. It's just very nice. It plays well. And the thing about this one, unlike most player versus player games, it's not a lot of take that. There's a little bit of denying people things, but the art in this is very similar. So if you like the general Uwe or that style, then you're really going to like this. The theme very similar to Caverna, and I think it holds up. It's basically a building, your cave and stuff. So I think it's pretty solid in that you have to collect resources to build, and you have to tear down to be able to grab those resources. So it works well. So components.
Cardboard quality is thick. And all in all, generally well done. I like the finish on the cards as well, on the tiles. So that, yeah, it works.
For me, there's a couple, like, absolutely great quality. There's just 2 little things I like to mention is the player boards, and I understand they had to fit it into the square size box. The box is supposed to be convenient. It's the standard size for like 2-player games like Babel and all the other 2-player games they do. But the player boards fold partially, like it's like 3/4 and then 1/4 fold. So I was a little concerned that they may eventually break off, but we'll have to see. We have played already, and there's no issues. And the other thing is, components-wise, is there are the wooden tokens, but some of them are cardboard, and then there's all the small little round cardboard ones. So I almost prefer using those. They're not as visually appealing and as tactilely interesting, but they fit better. I find the other ones are just so hard to fit them all on, and 2 of the 6 of the fancier ones are already cardboard anyway. So there's that. But otherwise, components are fantastic. They're easy, and it has Emer in it, which is apparently an ancient grain. That's what it was, Emer. I had no idea. I just thought it was wheat.
You learn something new every day.
You do. So, game mechanics.
The game flow is really good. The mechanics are really good. Light and easy to pick up. There's some different action selections you can take on your turn. You're not overwhelmed though with too many options. I like how the game progresses and builds up. You take, you know, a single action the first turn, and then multiple actions as the game goes further and further.
Yes.
To get to build up, and that's common with a lot of Uwe games as well, where you have, you know, a smaller number of workers initially, and you get more workers to take more actions later on. Overall, I felt the game mechanics worked really well. It basically gave me that Caverna feel in about a half hour total setup and game time. So, yeah.
Now, of course, it's limited by the fact that it's a 2-player game. So if you want to play in the Caverna feel without the Caverna setup, you can't do it with more than 2 players, but it's true. This game has the same feel as Caverna. Again, it's not as feed your people heavy as Agricola, or even Agricola, Creatures Big and Small. So it takes the Caverna mechanic of being able to actually do stuff and kind of get your engine building and your city build, your cavern building, without having to worry about that constant feed your people. Although in order to be able to do things, you do have to feed your people, but you already know you have to get there before you can do that action. So I do like, you're right, that it increases actions the further you go along. You have more actions, so you think, oh, it's only 8 rounds, it's gonna be super quick, and then you start to see it progress and take a little bit longer, and that's great. So similar games.
Obviously, it's in the title, Caverna. Again, similar theme. This game presses all the same board game buttons for me as Caverna does, but without having to go through, sort through 1,000 wooden pieces. Don't get me wrong, I love games with 1,000 wooden pieces, but sometimes you just don't have time to set a game like that up. Sometimes you just want a quick experience, and this gives us that.
It does. And you and I have both mentioned this, that people ask, would you prefer this over Creatures Big and Small? If I have Big and Small, do I need to have this one? I personally said yes. I believe you think the same, correct?
I personally prefer this one over Big and Small. I enjoy that one too. But given the choice between the two, I would choose Cave versus Cave.
I like I said, I love everything. Like I do love Uwe, so I love his games. I know not everyone does, but I personally love them. They really give me kind of that nice, great feel after I play it. But I also prefer this one just a smidge more for a number of reasons. It's smoother. It meshes well with all the mechanics together. So general overall opinion, I think people can probably already guess what we're thinking, but
2 big thumbs up for me.
Yes, it's definitely a winner. Like I said, I was originally going for Barron Park when we were at Origins. I was in line for Barron Park, and I kind of saw it, and they were asking if anyone wanted a copy, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take a copy, why not?
Now, to be fair, we're already Uwe Rosenberg fans,
yes.
So it was not a hard sell by any stretch of the imagination, but if you also enjoy his games, I think you'll appreciate this one. And it's great when you can only get 2 players to the gaming table.
Exactly, very true. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.